Hello, welcome to Voices of Industry by Sourcing Hardware. My guest today is Padma Gupta, Director of HR, Customer Experience and Strategy at Hafele India. Padma is an expert in change management, and she has been driving people excellence at Hafele for over 12 years now. Her skills and commitment to the trade have led Hafele to be recognized as a great place to work. Padma is also a master at neuro linguistic programming, also known as NLP, which I discovered is an approach to communication and personal development that aims to change the behaviors and thought processes of people. Another hat that Padma wears is that of mentor for the 1000 Women Leaders program, where she helps mid career professionals build critical capabilities for fast tracking their careers. So let's hear it from this Wonder Woman on how people excellence can be developed as an effective growth strategy for entrepreneurs. Hello, Padma. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Deepak. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here on the show.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you and listen to you. I've heard you at another forum where you were talking about people excellence, and I'm always keen to know more about that subject straight from you. So, Padma, let's get into this discussion. What is people excellence all about?
So when we say people excellence, though it has just two words in it, it is a whole world of its own because you are talking about people, who are these really complex beings, which are the beautiful beings, which if, developed in the right way can create excellence, not only for uh, the ecosystem they are in, but also especially since we are in the organizational context. I think people excellence starts right from identifying the organization's business model. And I think a lot of time, as HR people, especially, we tend to start with, thinking about people. But then at the end of the day, people will excel in a business environment. And that is why people are there in the first place in an organization. So I always feel that the journey of people excellence starts from the right understanding of the business that you are in, the organization that you are in, the industry that you operate in. Once you have the business model in place, people excellence starts from the day you start with the organization's design. Design follows the structure of the organization. Once you get the right structure in place in terms of what type of people, what is the, if at all there is a hierarchy or a flat organization, then getting the right people, because based on the structure there's a certain competence level which is required. So then once you get the right people, that's just the first step. Once you get the right people, that's when the journey really starts. All the rest was work, which was the pre-work, let me say, to the journey. Once you get the right people on board, I think the entire journey of identifying their talent, some are hidden, which you as an organization, you as a people development person will help to hone, help them to develop, discover themselves in the whole journey, and be the excellent versions of themselves. Once they are a better version of themselves, they only bring better things to the organization. So for me, people excellence is a journey which starts from the business, gets the right people, trains and grooms them to become excellent versions of themselves. And these excellent people then contribute right back to the business. So it's like a full circle which requires everything from talent acquisition to management to performance and ultimately to business success.
Well, you mentioned something very interesting, getting the right people on board. I was reading this book called Good to Great by Jim
True.
Collins,
Yes,
in which the author has tried to understand why good companies went on to become great companies.
Great companies.
And one of the chapters says the reason is level 5 leadership.
True.
And one of the traits of a level 5 leader is that the leader first chooses the right people to get onto the bus before
Right.
even deciding where to go.
True.
So Is this correct? Is it even possible that before we decide our goals, we first choose our team?
I think if you, so one, yes, I agree with it to a large extent, especially when you are starting off. So, since in the beginning you talked about entrepreneurs, I think when one starts a journey of entrepreneurship, one is always having a certain direction in mind. Few entrepreneurs, have an absolute specific target in mind, but a lot of entrepreneurship starts from being in control of your own destiny. That's usually, the switch over from working for someone else to working for your own self. And when you are working for your own self, what you require is a solid team which supports you. Now, once you get the solid team, sometimes the initial idea might be a seedling, and the plant can be, depending on the soil, depending on which seed you planted, you can have different types of journeys which you can then map. If you have the right people, if you have the right talented people, the restrictions and bottlenecks in your journey are easier to tackle, because the right people, the most important thing that they bring with them is the right attitude and mindset. And because when you are choosing, you have a fair idea of the goal, you automatically tend to choose people with whom you have an alignment and whom you will be able to develop a common thinking, a common aspiration. So once you get those right people, it allows you a lot of flexibility to take on maybe something different, something bigger, better, different, uh, more than what you even thought when you started the journey. Whereas if you don't have the right people, half your attention is now focused on either getting their skill right, or getting their mindset right, or getting them to buy the ideas that you have. So a lot of energy becomes, then the non-value added activity rather than a journey towards the goals of the organization. So I totally agree. And I'm so glad you mentioned Good to Great. I think I read it many, many years ago, and it is still one of my favorite go-to books. Yeah.
But it sounds it's actually easier said than done that
Hmm.
getting the right people on board, having the most talented people. This is the obvious thing that any entrepreneur would want. But then the more talented people or smart people are around you, then isn't it a fact that the entrepreneur fears losing control of the organization?
I think yes, to an extent, most of the entrepreneurs that I have worked with, I think there is, yes, a certain fear of control, especially in the beginning, because you are still discovering yourself, you are still establishing your name, you are still, finding your space in the industry that you are in. And it is always easy to, drive the car yourself, and make sure that you reduce the speed if there is a speed breaker, or increase the speed if the signal is green, and go at whatever is the maximum speed limit possible. The more difficult part is to sit on the side and try and tell the person how to drive. And I think for entrepreneurs, that is the most difficult thing, because when they start with the dream, the person who has the clearest vision is they themselves, because it is their dream. Now, like I always say, people are the most wonderful assets. But the problem with people, and good people, is that they come with a lot of their own thoughts, views, and areas that they would like to bring to the table. I think for the entrepreneurs, therefore, selecting people who are aligned with their vision becomes very, very important. Because if they are aligned with the vision, then it becomes easier for them. But like you said, that insecurity of losing control, I think that is a reality which probably every entrepreneur lives with. So that is why you will see a lot of people who start the entrepreneurial journey, they will start either with a very trusted friend or colleague. They will start with the family members, so that their so-called the way of practice or the trade secret is not diluted so quickly. But then the moment they get to an optimum level and they want to grow, I think there is this inner dialogue which makes them understand that now growth is limited with control. And then, they slowly start opening the doors of control and bringing more people in.
So you are saying that giving up control will lead to more growth.
I am not saying giving up control totally, because depending on the industry that you are in, it can also create havoc. And since the entrepreneur's entire skin is in the game, so obviously, he or she will not want to lose control. However, as an HR person and as a people's person, I think there is a shift which happens, which is, a framework of control which is put in place. The boundary lines are defined, and the first area where the entrepreneur can let go in order to fasten the growth rather than control is to give out maybe the non value added activities, the repetitive tasks, areas where their organization or their setup has already attained mastery. So now there is a strong possibility that they can pass on that skill to another person who can run it well after due handholding training. The key for the entrepreneur, and I think every entrepreneur knows that, is there is nothing like blind trust. There is a very strong shift. If you will look at organizations, that whole journey where you would lead by instinct and intuition based on relationships, that shift happens when you give up control. You put measures in place, because then you shift from intuitive decision making to database decision making, and other people can do that decision making on your behalf, because it is now no more intuitive. You shift from, I trust you because I have a relationship with you, to the fact that I will monitor and I will set goals and KRAs which we will both understand. So I think that is the shift which is a win-win, where you let go of control but you create a framework.
So as an entrepreneur, I hear you loud and clear that yes, I need to give up control, but instead of trust, I need to monitor the people through data, and I need not depend entirely on my most closest friends and relatives, because uh, that itself is a kind of a hurdle or a speed breaker in the long run. Sometimes friends no longer remain friends because after some time the productivity of the friend might go down.
True, true.
So how do I make this shift from being led by trust, being working along with trusted people, to now bringing in more talented people? You, of course, you mentioned that the repetitive tasks, but what about more leadership positions? How do I move there?
I think in order to create and have a trusted team, which is like a leadership team for you as an entrepreneur, I think the one thing which happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is that a lot of it remains in their head. A lot of the plans that they have, the lot of the ways in which they want to do things remains in their head. So people may or may not get clarity of the goals. Now, the question is, why would you want to have a leadership team? The reason why you would want to have a leadership team is because you have so many things to do that you are overwhelmed. And it would be a welcome opportunity to have, out of the 10 things, two things taken out and handled by two people whom I can trust. When will I trust them? When the results that they get are similar to the results that I would get when I am doing it. Maybe the pathways might be a little different, because we will all bring our own styles and ways of working. One thing which could help as an entrepreneur is, can you, the entrepreneur, define a very clean goal and vision? Can you define milestones which you want to achieve? Because the person whom you are trusting and trying to build up as a leader can reach those milestones if the vision is clear. It is like I tell you that, Deepak, I'm in Lonavala and I want you to reach Lonavala. It will be far more easier for you to go, rather than I say that, Deepak, reach somewhere which is 1 hour from Mumbai. Now that puts you in all directions. For the entrepreneurs, is like, I want to be the leader in my industry. Now that is a statement which does not have a very clear and well defined goals and vision. I want to be a leader in the industry, or maybe I want to be the one where I have the top brand recall. I want to have the maximum number of customers. I want to have the maximum repeat orders in my particular industry. If you are able to put measurable criteria and link it with the goal, your people will try to achieve it. If they achieve it, then you get a positive reinforcement that they can be trusted. And that is how you create leaders whom you can rely upon. My favorite example in organizations, of course, it's easier because we say that, your team member or your junior should be able to take on the task should you want to go on a 1 month holiday. So develop your successor. In entrepreneurship, that is not so easy. I think in entrepreneurship, one needs to look at that what are the things that I need not look at when I am on a 1 month holiday. कि अगर 10 चीजें, if there are 10 things, 5 are taken care of. The rest of the 5 I will, in between keep a track of. So that's what I think based on my experience.
So, talking of examples, I will put you another a situation or something. As
Sure.
many of Hafele's customers are, say, manufacturers of furniture or of bathrooms or other home improvement concepts or projects.
Right.
So, it would be in your interest to to see that they also become professionally managed, or they
Absolutely.
also build their own internal talented teams. They have excellent people over there, so that that entrepreneur also grows better.
Absolutely.
So, what
Absolutely.
would you suggest to them? Any say action points you might want to give them?
I think one of the things, and when I'm talking about OEMs or, especially our furniture manufacturers or, people who have a larger setup where they have large organizations rather than, let's say, just a retail outlet because they are also our customers. I think in those cases, some of the organizations that I have worked with, certain things which have worked very well with these entrepreneurs is their ability to look at the business from a holistic perspective and be able to choose which tasks they can delegate and which tasks they cannot.
Okay,
There are certain things which are very close to the heart, and I say, okay, keep that. Don't give it away. But what is it that you do because you don't have a choice? Start with that. So, one is if they can, see, this seems to be like a textbook solution, but when you see people who have executed them, you know that it works. There are some entrepreneurs, when we talk about the right people, so many times, I hear from them that, we don't want too much exposure of our people, even to the extent of training or attending conferences or events, because, they might be poached by competition, right? My only advice to them is that, see, as long as can you hold them captive? No, the law does not allow you to, have, labor which is bound to you for life. So your only bet is that can I create pull factors rather than push factors? Most of the time, people leave because of push factors. Maybe they are not treated right. Maybe they are not paid right. Maybe they are not feeling comfortable that, they are being groomed enough for the market. Today, I am working for Hafele because I know that Hafele is keeping me up to date and abreast with the market. I am not restricted and restrained by them. I am there because it is a mutual growth which is happening. Can we do that? Usually, like for instance, one organization, I remember I said that, they said, experienced people, sometimes it's very difficult to get them and they are very expensive. I said, why don't you start a management trainee program? They said, oh, if we take management trainees, will we be even able to attract them? I said, give it a shot. Maybe you will be. It depends. I mean, nowadays, entrepreneurs are dream people to work for because, all the college and the MBA students, they would want to be entrepreneurs. And trust me, they said, they are costlier than my current team. I said, the key is to hire maybe only two to start with. But make sure you hire a good person so that after the training of 3 months, that person's delivery is different from the people maybe who are not MBAs or who are not from the campus. And now I think that particular OEM, I think they hire almost 15 management trainees every year. Management trainees have their churn around, they will leave after 2.5, 3 years. The key over there is that can I quickly orient them and make them start delivering? The amount of returns and the business development that they get done through their management trainees in that period of 2.5 years is much more than what their seasoned employees could do after a span of maybe even double the period. For the simple reason that, they are fresh people with fresh ideas. But hamara barrier kya tha? Our barrier was that, these kids, we will have to train them. Then they will leave after 3 years. Is there even a merit in it? Some of them leave even in the first year. But when we sat down and we did an ROI calculation after 2 years, we realized that the time and effort and the cost that we invested on them was much, much low compared to the returns as a business. And business doesn't go anywhere. They got you 5 clients, they established a business, those 5 clients are still giving you business. Long after the management trainee moved out, pursued a new organization, and so on and so forth. So I think small things and changes like these can really help entrepreneurs. Deepak, I find it very ironical because I feel entrepreneurs, and most of them are really good employers because, their heart is with the people, especially the smaller teams, because they are handpicked by them. They have a certain relationship with them, they know them well, and they create so many exceptions for them. I know that, if you are in a professional organization like Hafele, for example, and you are unwell, there is an insurance cover. Let us say there is an insurance cover of 100 rupees. The employee values it because it is organized and predictable. In an entrepreneurial setup, the entrepreneur will send maybe 500 rupees if his key employee is unwell, which is actually 5 times of what an professional organization is doing. But what is the professional organization doing? It is creating predictability and standardization, which is something which, if we can adopt along with that soft touch, I think people would love to work more for entrepreneurs than even maybe a standard organization or a larger setup. So I feel that is the hidden pull factor which a lot of entrepreneurial setups have.
Now, you spoke about adding these soft touches so that there is predictability and there is a kind of a security factor
True, true.
uh, within organizations, especially entrepreneurial organizations. There is another saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Absolutely.
We've all heard of that.
Absolutely.
So, what does that culture mean in the entrepreneurial context?
I think one, yes, both culture and strategy are important because to sustain the culture, you also require a strategy, and in order to succeed at the strategy, you require the culture. I think in any organization, including the entrepreneurial setup, culture is what makes you really want to do what you have planned in the strategy. Culture is that, that glue which binds people together. Culture is it's a very ephemeral thing because you can't see it. It's something which people will feel day in and day out. Now in entrepreneurial setups, I think when we say culture eats strategy for breakfast, strategy is in a very, very simplified version. Strategy is the set of execution action points which you want to do in order to reach the success, जहाँ पे आपने milestone tag किया है कि this is going to be my success. Whereas culture is something which is the will factor. Do people want to work for you? Do people want to come and work for you? Now culture, how is it made? It cannot be made in one day, because if you go by the typical definition of culture, culture is the values, beliefs, and practices which exist in an organization. So culture is very much driven from What does the organization stand for? So for instance, and in the country itself, there are organizations which are very clear that revenue is their main focus. Now in such an organization, you will find aggressiveness, you will find, a do or die attitude, you will find that, numbers are paramount, and that is the culture, and that is we live it, because that is the belief system. And anybody who joins this organization cannot really crib or cannot really say that, this is not the type of culture I want to work in, because that is in line with the strategy. And if they don't have that sort of a culture, they will never be able to drive that strategy. So imagine your revenue is your main focus, and you say, do or die, we need to make our strategy. But at the same time, you want to have, you want to be one of the best places to work. You want to, have a Google type of an environment right from day one, where you are giving a lot of flexibility. You are giving people a lot of advantage. I mean, Google allows you to take a sabbatical for a year if you would like to. But if I am an entrepreneur and I am trying to stabilize and get a financial uh, health ascertained at this point in time, I cannot have the culture of an organization which is about innovation. So culture absolutely talks to strategy. In India, in a normal entrepreneurship structure, if the value system is clear, the employee should know what is your value system. What do we stand for as an organization? You cannot say that, we as an organization care for the people. We as an organization, employees come first, and then, you for if let's say your female employee has gone on a maternity leave, you say, yeah, the government says it is 6 months, but I want you to start working from home in 2 months time. So then there is a disconnect between what you are stating as the culture and what you are driving as a culture. Then your strategy will not work. So I always feel that, unfortunately, people think that culture is about being good. Culture is not about, being nice and being good. Culture is being true to the value system that your organization stands for. If you as let's take the military, for example, or the army, for example. What is the culture there? The strongest word that will come to your mind is discipline. And discipline is the culture over there. Respect is a culture over there. Line authority is a culture over there, because the strategy is to win the war. When you want to win the war, these are the values which work. You don't argue, you are totally disciplined, you respect your line of command, and that is what drives the strategy. Now imagine if there was a democratic culture, because that's how we should be. We should listen to the voices of all the people. It cannot work, because the strategy is very different. So, depending on the strategy, I think entrepreneurs can make an attempt to create the culture and the ecosystem based on that. That's why the saying culture eats strategy for breakfast. Because when the alignment is missing, then culture is stronger than the strategy. Because culture is the way you live every day in the organization. Strategy is what you want to achieve. So that's my take on the culture and strategy bit.
Which means that whatever culture you have will kill the strategy
Any
if it is
day,
not supporting the strategy.
any day, any day, any
Making
day.
strategies is by itself doesn't mean anything.
Making strategies is very important, but keeping the culture in mind should be the pre work for the strategy.
Now, I go back again to the entrepreneurs who find it difficult to give up control, and I
Mhm.
refer to another talk of the earlier talk of yours where you describe the kind of entrepreneurs there are or leaders there are. The various ways in which. Could you just explain that again?
So, when I talk to entrepreneurs, and I think it's pretty old, and it's not even my original thought. When we talk about growth and when we talk about success, one way is to look at what are the bottlenecks. What can stop you from getting where you want to be? And my favorite question to entrepreneurs is that, We say it is a bottleneck for a reason, because the neck of the bottle, where is it located? Invariably, of course, the answer is right at the top. And then I say that, every organization, most of the time, the bottleneck, or rather, all the time, the bottleneck is at the top. In an entrepreneurial setup, the top is the entrepreneur or the group of entrepreneurs who are running that organization. Now, the leadership style of the entrepreneur or the person at the top is the one which defines what happens down below. They say that uh, uh, they say culture flows from top to the bottom, and strategies are, also percolated, or goals or visions are also percolated from top to the bottom. Now, different entrepreneurs, depending on their industry, depending upon, I would say, their size, the way they are established in a particular industry, I think they all have very different leadership styles. I think one of the journeys which every entrepreneur makes, probably in their, as the organization grows, I think the first time when the entrepreneur starts, it will always be, a sort of an autocratic style of leadership, because that is the time when you are laying down what you want to do. So I left my job because I wanted to take control of my destiny, and I became an entrepreneur. Now, since I want, that is my primary thought. I am, of course, an autocratic leader because I want things done in a certain way. That is the foundation that I'm laying. Once the organization grows a little bit, you have some more people, you get a little more competence in the team, you get a little more confidence in the output that your business is producing. Typically, you will see that the entrepreneurial style will move from an autocratic to a democratic style. Why? Because a lot of leaders, other than the entrepreneur, will also have gained experience about the industry. They will be able to bring valuable insights onto the table. Whether it is your service head, whether it is your sales head, whether it is your production head, whether it is your logistics in charge, they have all had an exposure now, and they will have certain points of view which may be very, very critical. So you will see the shift in the entrepreneur style, moving from a democratic to an sorry, from an autocratic to a democratic style, because now it is important for him. He or she can't be everywhere. So he needs to know that, why is there an issue with the quality? Who better than the production head to tell him? Why are people leaving us? Why are we not consistent in our output in sales? Maybe the HR or the sales head is the right person to give him that input. So the entrepreneur learns to listen more and come to an agreeable solution which works for everyone, because अब team बड़ी हो गई. Once that is established, and he can move up a little bit more, you will typically see that, entrepreneurs will then get into, that coaching style, or the visionary leadership style. Because now, for day to day execution, for day to day making sure that, the profit is booked, all our debts are cleared, we are fulfilling the customers, the CSAT NPS, if they measure, the satisfaction scores are high. Now the entrepreneur can take a slide back seat. He knows that people are taking the right decisions on a day to day level, but I still need to give them a direction on what next. Now, in order to get into the what next, they have to get into the visionary style of leadership. Once you are able to become a leader who is able to have new plans, new strategies, newer places which the organization can go. It's a little bit like when you climb a mountain, you climb the first hill, that is a victory, but that is not the end. There is one more peak to climb. When you climb the second peak, there is a third peak, and at every, from peak to peak, you need to pass on the vision to the people below so that they can come and join you on the next one. Finally, I think at the top level, and if you meet the industry leaders who then become thought leaders, these are the people who then adopt a coaching style of leadership, where they say that, who should I take as an example? There's like a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, these big huge business enterprises. You will see a lot of time they will stop talking about what makes their business successful. They start talking about what makes the industry successful, what works for the country, and they are happy to be on platforms where they can share their journeys. So they are still leading, but since they have developed experts, their business is almost on an autopilot. They start loving the whole idea of now passing on the knowledge and becoming coaches, becoming guides, becoming the voice of the industry. So in my view, from an observation perspective, it's a lot of situational leadership depending on the age, stage, and phase of the organization that entrepreneurs keep changing. And of course, now in HR, we've given all of them names for every leadership style. But I think if you talk to an entrepreneur, they will probably tell you, a similar journey. And, if you pick up any moment of the journey, they will tell you, no, at this point in time, I took charge. I told people what is to be done. So they are telling you I was an autocratic leader. And then, at some point in time, they said, now, so and so people have joined. We've hired this guy who is an IM pass out. And now he has very good ideas. And I said, okay, now you run this part of the business. Means they have become a democratic leader now. They've started listening to people. So that's how the journey of the entrepreneur and the styles, I think, also keep changing.
And if that person becomes a member of an industry body and perhaps becomes a president of that body, like CII or PhD, and that's the time when he's becoming a coach or mentor or a coach.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then they cease to be just an entrepreneur. Then they are the torchbearers of the industry.
Yeah.
The leaders, the ones who will steer the country also forward on certain platforms, just because of their thought leadership and their ability to see a vision, and also having so much experience because they've lived the journey. So that's how, yeah.
Very interesting. You've described it in such in simple words, and I could visualize all of this.
I'm glad.
Now, coming to Hafele, what kind of a culture have you built in Hafele?
So culture is not static, it also has to keep on changing as we change. I joined Hafele 12 years back. We were fairly small at that point in time. We were barely 100 crores, if I talk in terms of business. And now we are more than 1,000 crores in terms of business. So I think in my decade, the organization has also grown, multiple times, 10 times plus, I would say. I think the culture that we've created together as a leadership team in Hafele, and we continue to do so, I think one of the strongest pillars of the culture at Hafele is our ability to empower people. And whenever I'm taking interviews or when I'm hiring people, the first thing that I look at, or my leadership team looks at, is that can this person work without having someone breathing down their neck all the time? So, will the person take on the responsibility when given, and at the same time show the accountability to complete the task? Because when you can have a culture of empowerment, but you can't empower fools, right? You can't empower incompetent people. So, the first key is that you hire people whom you can empower. And therefore, at Hafele, we have been very empowering. I think the other thing that at Hafele we have done really well is the whole element of acceptance and flexibility to absorb different styles. So, for instance, if you look at Hafele, the way we drive appliance as a business is very different from the way we drive architectural hardware as a business, because they are both more or less almost different industries in their own way. The competition is different, the type of talent we hire is a little different from each other. So that uh, the strength of the organization to absorb these differences and at the same time appreciate and enable them under a common umbrella, I think that is something which that flexibility and openness to accept variations has been very very high in Afle. And I think third thing as an organization is that because of the nature of business that we are in and our business model, and we do a lot of work with outsourced partners and suppliers in addition to our own setup, where we have absolute control over manufacturing, etc. I think agility and quick decision making is something which we have rewarded at Hafele. And therefore, when it is not looked upon as long as, of course, due diligence is done, I think we have always been very careful to have processes which are made for the business and not business for the process. And that has helped us because it keeps us away from red tapeism and bureaucracy. If it is a good idea, it is a good idea. It need not come from the leadership team, it can come from the salesperson. And we would, take on that idea and build on it. If it is a great idea, then very quickly. Because if we go through all the hierarchy, and by the time the idea reaches the people who are decision makers, it will probably, the competition will have introduced something like that. So I think those are a couple of things which have contributed to Hafele being there. And I think in Hafele, we have invested a lot on people and we continue to invest. In fact, I remember the last time we met, I was saying that, sometimes I also get that feeling that, everybody seems to be hiring from us. And we lose people, of course. There is, I would say, attrition. But then the good part is that the fact that people are going and doing really well in the industry also helps us attract really good talent. I mean, we get inquiries even from students in the IM because they want to work with us because this is a nascent industry. The industry is still not established, but we seem to be, a structure in between which is professional yet fast. We are still establishing, yet, we are made a name for ourselves. A brand is there. So, from those perspective, I think investing in the right people, then allowing those people and empowering them to bring their best ideas to the workplace. Once the best ideas come to the workplace, not killing it by process and bureaucracy, making sure that agility is there for those ideas, and lot of transparency to the people. People know what's going on in Hafele. A Hafele employee will, I'm hoping that, they are not people who will be clueless about what is the organization planning to do. So I think those are the things which have kept us relevant, I would say, in the industry, kept people very exciting. A lot of people ask me that, it's been 13 years, don't you get bored? And my response is that, there are so many new things to do. We have got such a huge product base. We do so many new things. We pride ourselves on, the way we train people, groom people. They are new people to work with. And especially now after HR, the whole movement to customer service and then into strategy. So it's not just my journey, but there will be a lot of people who would have, moved from different verticals, doing new things. So I think that keeps us, I think, as a good place to work for sure.
With more and more responsibilities coming your way or opportunity, actually, it's opportunities. Better that instead of just responsibilities, it's an opportunity to grow and do. So, with more opportunities coming your way, surely there's no time to get bored. And
No, there is not. There is not. There is not.
well, I think you had an amazing journey as an HR person and at Hafele.
Absolutely true.
And
Absolutely.
the way you are describing it, I can make out that a lot of aura might be going out of Hafele all around, either through people who are leaving and joining elsewhere, or your interactions and your coaching of your customers, your OEMs, in all aspects, 360-degree connect that you are having with the stakeholders.
True. I think we've always believed in partnerships. So if you look at our franchisee network, if you look at our presence, our relationships with the architects, interior designers, I think with the educational institutions, some of the best like CEPT in Ahmedabad or any of the institutes which are into architecture and into furniture or hardware, where they make interior designers, I think we've always believed in partnership. And it feels very cliche, but like Modi ji says, no, sabka saath, sabka vikas. So I think as an organization, I feel very proud because Hafele has always been very focused in developing the ecosystem and raising the bar for everybody, be it for us, be it for our partners, be it even for the entire market and industry. I think that's something which makes it a very joyful journey.
Well, Padma, thank you very much for taking
Thank
out
you.
time from your busy schedule and
Absolutely.
sharing these nuggets of wisdom and pleasures of working in great places and making other places greater. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much, Deepak. As always, a pleasure talking to you. And I think every time we have an interaction, I also get new perspectives to think on and work upon and what else can be done. So
Wow.
thank you so much for inviting me and talking to me.
Thank you indeed. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye.